Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about line and how to distinguish between implied line, directional line, and line of sight. So a line, it can be like a long, thin, or thick, or short, continuous mark that can be either curved or straight. And a line can also be a group of people or something arranged in a row. A line can be an imaginary line created when the movement of or the sight of somebody leads us to something or somebody else. Like these guys are running in this direction, and this man is looking in this direction. It's his house. So he's looking from here to the house, and they're running from here to the other side of the image. So we're going to discuss some of the kinds of lines you can find in artwork: directional line, implied line, and line of sight. So the first line we're going to talk about is directional line, and there's two kinds of directional line. And the first one of these is directional line is a continuous line. This kind of directional line leads you from one area of the painting to the next. So in this case, there's this guy. I don't want to say what he's doing right here, but something's happening. This guy that's hanging out in the window, he's here. So there's a directional line in this image. There's multiple directional lines, but this particular one starts up here and goes all the way down until it runs into his arms overlapping this. So in this kind of directional line, the line starts in one place and it doesn't stop until either something overlaps it or it ends when it touches something else, which causes it to look from the beginning of the line to whatever it overlaps or touches. What are these guys doing? So then there's, this is another example of directional line is continuous line. So there's a horizontal line on the top of the windows, and on the left it starts here at the top of the shutter, runs across the line until it comes to this guy's crazy hat. And then on the right, same thing happens. We start over here and we run along the top of the window. We look down at those guys and say, what the hell are y'all doing? And then we end up at this guy's hat. So this is a directional line that leads us from one part of the window to the hat, from one part of the window to the hat. So there's also these curved lines. Don't go down to this one, it's kind of dirty. There's these curved lines in this man's clothes. There are also directional lines that start in one area and curve around until they run into or overlap by something else, which causes us to look from the beginning of the curve till where it either runs into something else or is overlapped by something else. So there's another kind of directional line, and it's a line that's caused by a row of objects or figures. And this kind of directional line makes us look at the beginning of the row to the end of the row. So this is another Peter Bruegel painting, and in this there are rows of trees that start out in the foreground and they lead us to the middle ground of the painting. There's rows of snow-colored roofs that lead us from one part of the painting to the other, so from the foreground again into the middle ground. There's rows of dogs and hunters. We're going to combine them. So like we start at this part where the dogs are, and it leads us all the way to this hunter. And then there's in the background, there's rows of skaters, and there's rows of trees, and there's a row of birds. 1, 2, 3. Those row of birds, they make us look from one part of the painting to the other. So now we're going to talk about implied line. And the word implied means suggested, but not directly expressed. So it's not an actual drawn line, it's a suggestion of a line. When someone or something is moving toward, gesturing toward, or pointing at someone or something else. So in this instance, this guy, I don't know what's wrong with him. I think he's drunk. or otherwise. So this guy's arm is stretched out. Let's go to the next page. It's stretched out, and whatever he is, he's hungry. He wants that pancake. So in this case, the man stretches his hand, point A, toward the pancake, point B, creating an implied line. Also great frustration for him because he can't reach the pancake. Here's another one. Here's this lady. She's carrying, what is that, like a burning marshmallow or something? It's too close to her clothes. She's going to burn a hole in them. Anyway, like, so she's walking toward this man who really is leaning over with his head in a brick wall. So she is point A as she's walking toward the man that's really not going to get any further because there's a brick wall there. He's point B, and that creates not a real line, but the suggestion of a line, an implied line. So here's another instance where is it implied or is it directional? Well, here's the cart. It's got this diagonal pole, and it's pointing at this person trudging through the snow carrying a big bag on their back. Now, that it almost touches him, but there's a space between that pole and that man. That creates an implied line. If, for example, this diagonal pole went all the way down and either touched that man or that man overlapped it, then in that case, that would be a directional line. But because there's that space there, it's an implied line. So the next kind of line we're going to talk about is line of sight. And what organ of the body does the word sight relate to? Does it relate to your nose? Well, no, it doesn't. What about your ears? Nope, not that one either. It relates to it relates to your eyes. So when you think of line of sight, you think eyesight and looking. So always in line of sight, someone in the painting or something like a stuffed doll, for example, is looking at someone else in the painting. The boy on the stilts is looking at the girl below him. The girl below him is looking at the boy. So they're creating lines of sight toward each other. Now they're also creating implied lines. The boy on the stilts is walking toward the girl. The girl is gesturing toward the boy. Now that, in that case, is an implied line. The boy's stilts, see the long continuous line, that's a directional line. And that makes us look from the bottom all the way to the boy's hand. Here's another directional line. It's a continuous line that leads us straight to the boy. So in order for it to be a line of sight, you got to have somebody looking at somebody else. So this one's got a lot of lines of sight. A lines of sight. No, there's no lions in here. This guy, what is this? Like a leopard? I'm not really sure. This leopard is looking at that bull's horn and it's saying, please don't gorge me with your horn, or gorge me either. And then this tiger saying, oh, I'm looking at Mr. Bull. Mr. Bull, please don't step on my friend. And then there are these birds. What are they? Peacocks without tails? I'm not really sure what they are. But they're looking at each other and they're saying, and this guy's saying, hey, cutie, want to get together? And she's saying, hell no. But they're looking at each other, creating a line of sight. So remember, with line of sight, you always have to have who, you have to include who or what is looking and who and what they're looking at. So here's this Graciela Interbide photograph of this young girl. And in this case, we are included in the line of sight because she's looking at us, which causes us to look at her. There's also an implied line in this. That hand is gesturing toward the girl, creating the suggestion of a line. So that's an implied line. There are directional lines. Her braid creates a directional line that leads from here all the way down to her shoulder, to her beautifully embroidered dress. I wish I had that. So that's it. So let's all say goodbye, and I'll see you next time, okay? How's that sound? Does that sound good? I can't get this to turn off, though. There you go. Now I can stop the recording.